Well, thanks for letting us take this time to share about our innovation and a little bit more about our story. So with minimally invasive surgery, there are a lot of really amazing things that are making healthcare more advanced, right? One big thing is improved patient outcomes with cosmetic outcomes, also improving procedure time, but also the how long it takes for them to recover. And also with robotic surgery, pushing the advances even more. But a key part of that is the ability to see inside the abdomen during the procedure. And the ability to maintain this visualization is key to allow for this minimally invasive procedures and these robotic procedures to happen. But a big problem happens where the lens often gets obstructed with blood or bodily fluid or debris, causing the procedure to completely halt. And this happens again and again. Surgeons have told us it's like driving with a dirty windshield. And in 90% of robotic-assisted surgeries, this happens again and again. It's disrupted by these optical disturbances. And then traditional laparoscopic procedures, you can spend a third of your time with some kind of impaired vision. So we went out and talked to hundreds of surgeons around the country, and the response is always the same. It's a huge waste of time, they lose focus, and there's no avoiding it. And right now, the only workaround is to try and wipe it on a nearby organ or to have to pull the scope out. And with robotic surgery, that takes a lot of time. It's timely and cumbersome. And so what really happens is it squanders procedure time. It jeopardizes control during these critical moments of the procedure, and it aggravates surgeon decision fatigue that can be tied to patient safety. So what we're proposing is a minimalistic origami-inspired technology to clean the lens while inside the body. And the way it works is the product is called LaparVision, and it enhances procedural workflow by having this rapid response in abdomen solution. And it improves patient outcomes by not having to remove the scope for multiple reasons, and then also lowers procedure costs. So right now, when you pull the scope out to clean, that takes a lot of time, especially with robotic procedures. And that time is dependent on the procedure itself. And so often that takes multiple minutes to a lot of time, and you can increase your OR throughput by having better control of how long each procedure will take. So the way it works is simple. It enters the body as disposable attachment over an existing laparoscope or an endoscope and gives the physician or operating team the ability to actuate the wiper from outside the body. Here's an example of a prototype physically kind of cleaning, giving a demo here. And showing this to surgeons, we've gotten amazing feedback saying it's about time. They've been waiting for this for about 20 years. It's been really rewarding in this whole process. And really our vision is, right, this future of robotic and even this idea of autonomous procedures is the future. And maintaining clear visualization during these procedures is critical to allowing these advancements to happen. And so we're excited with our team at Bloom Surgical to keep pushing this forward and allowing the ability to maintain this visualization in these settings. So a big question is how we got here. And a big part of this was 5 years ago, I joined the Compliant Mechanisms Research Lab under the direction of Dr. Larry Howe, where the focus there is origami-inspired engineering products and ideas of compliant mechanisms and pushing the boundaries in areas that can enhance things in space to medical devices. And what Dr. Howe did really amazing in this lab was create an environment for innovation and to foster this mindset of commercialization, but also exploring deep technologies. And so being in this atmosphere really allowed us to innovate, explore commercially viable ideas while also pushing boundaries on these technical advancements. So, we often think about academia and industry as two different worlds. We solve problems in different ways. We tackle things in different ways. But if you do it right, there's a great way to have great outcomes by putting the two together. And that really was a key part of our story here was leveraging academia, but also the industry side of things to push us forward. Right? In academia, we use the scientific method in science to make new discoveries, to validate new things. Similarly, in business and startups, right, we use a lean startup method, which really is like a scientific approach to entrepreneurship. But if you can merge those together and do them in parallel, you now have these really enhanced outcomes where as you're trying to solve technological problems, you're also exploring customer discovery. And as you're trying to validate the technological side of things, you're also validating the product side of things. And doing these together inside of the university really is a great setting to push these ideas forward. And then eventually you leave continue the cycle on your own outside of the university. So for us, we came out of BYU, and we've continued working with the University of Utah to really take advantage of these student opportunities. So cross-campus collaboration, hands-on experiential learning programs, mentorship opportunities, but then a lot of competitions and accelerators that have been really great for us as students to propel this idea and keep things going forward. So there's a market need to make devices and technology smaller, more compact, more functional. And if you look at this, it leads to the observation, right, in the scientific method, where all of the functionality is on the distal end of these minimally invasive devices. So then you have this question, right? Well, what if you had mechanisms embedded on the wall for greater functionality, right? How could you enhance this real estate of these minimally invasive surgical device shafts to not just have a tool on the end, but the actual shaft can become the tool? And so that was the question. And now we start researching, which, in the academic lab, it's a great way to explore these open-ended questions, right? In industry, trying to push these new technologies isn't always profitable, but in the lab, trying to do technology pushes and explore these new ideas is great for what the lab does. So we were able to come out with a few different hypotheses of different deployable, conforming medical device ideas that could potentially enhance minimally invasive surgery. And so this was our hypothesis for these products. We now take these out. One of them was this idea for this multifunctional trocar that had deployable cameras for stereoscopic vision for single port surgery. And so we entered this into a student competition called Bench to Bedside at the University of Utah, and it allowed us to get in front of physicians and industry experts and start trying to validate, does this type of technology have merit in the industry? And then we ended up doing the National Science Foundation I-Corps program, flew out to New York. And this is where we're able to now get industry experts. This is where I met my co-founder, Ian Esplin, who came in, and then also went out there with the professor who wrote the book on this technology, Larry Howell, and kind of bring these two worlds together and explore the customer discovery side of things and how this technology can have a bigger impact, which really was a foundation to growing this idea. We got tons of data from hundreds of interviews, multiple hospitals, observing operations, shadowing procedures across the country, and you start to see these patterns emerge. Right? One quote that I loved was, "It turns into a science experiment to clean the scope rather than focus on the procedure itself." So here we are focusing on this more advanced visualization system, but the reality is they're just trying to keep the scope clean in the first place. And so we start learning, wow, maybe there's a bigger opportunity here. And during this process, we learned a ton about really what makes a commercially viable technology. And then take all of that, go back to the university lab now, and have more directed research to something that the market actually wants. Now we start the cycle all over again, right? It's this loop. You ask a new question. Okay, well, what if there's an embedded micro wiper mechanism on the end of a laparoscope to clean the lens? So then we start researching again, but this time in a way that the market actually demands. Y Combinator talks a lot about how developing a new technology can be accelerated still within the confines of the university, and leveraging these resources that have been available to us. And for us, that was critical. I actually ended up incorporating this into my master's thesis and was able to get support from BYU to push this technology forward in a low-risk way when we weren't ready to dive into the startup without a technology that actually is viable. So then we have a new hypothesis for a minimal viable product. And so we go out and test it again. We enter new competitions. We do explore things in the lab about the technology, how it actually works, and test the actual mechanisms. We do simulations and mathematical modeling in the university lab. But then at the same time, you're testing these hypotheses of the business model. So now we're building these business models, entering these competitions for our commercialization strategy, our go-to-market approach, and starting to talk more about validating the business side of things. And doing them in parallel was key. And so in this process, right, we did things like the International Mechanism and Robot Competition to focus on the technology, but then we did bench to bedside multiple times, which was critical to get in front of physicians and everything. And then ASU.io we won, Student Innovator of the Year, VentureWell programs to support student-led startups, especially based on technology, multiple business model competitions. All of these were this cyclic process where we have this hypothesis, we go out and learn about it, we measure the data, and we continue this loop again and again in the lab, but also on the startup side, which fed off of each other. So we had this, really great ability to focus with BYU on the academic side, get their support on our core technology, but then on the startup end, use these non-dilutive grants and competition earnings to propel our company and the idea forward on the commercialization side, both building off of each other. So from BYU, be able to get sponsored scientific research. We licensed the technology from BYU because that's where we developed it, doing startup accelerator programs with them. Now with the U, I'm actually no longer a student, but we still continue to leverage things with the Center for Medical Innovation at the U by getting dedicated workspace, prototyping resources, access to world-class surgeons, regulatory guidance. And so these universities have been key to helping us in the startup process. Up until this point, we've been able to raise over $400,000 from non-dilutive sources, most of which have come from competitions and grants that are helping university-led and student-led startups. And so, more and more students are developing technologies and coming out of universities with startups. It really provides a great atmosphere and a vehicle for innovation by having this cross-campus collaboration and explore deep technologies that are too risky for a normal startup. And so for us, that was definitely the case. But a lot of it comes down to having an atmosphere that has the vision for this, right? The right universities, the right programs, the right competitions, the right university labs. And for us, working out of Dr. Howe's lab for me was key because he had a vision for what this technology could become with commercialization efforts. And so we're now able to go in, explore the deep technology, and do all the science side, but then also take that time outside the lab and simultaneously explore the commercialization ability of this technology. So, we continue to rely on these universities, and it's been a huge part of our entrepreneurial journey, even allowing us, take time right now to come and tell our story in front of you guys. So thank you for listening about our story.